Over the course of the past 5 months, I haven't been getting addicted to Coke, a cola, gambling, or even clicking this not even piece of chocolate in Minecraft. But instead, I have been getting addicted to running the most profitable boss in Hypixel Skyblock, the Infernal Kuudra. Now, let me explain. Over these 200 hours of gameplay, I've changed my profile in unimaginable ways, making billions of coins, becoming a debatably skilled Kuudra player, and most importantly, I have made so many friends while running that I don't even have to rely on Party Finder anymore. After a vigorous month of uploading, I had finally obtained the level 200 Golden Dragon pet, and along with this, I managed to buy the rest of the items I needed for my fairly god-awful Infernal setup. So I hopped into Party Finder with a friend and finally began my 1000 run adventure. Right, just a quick little something before we begin. I know I haven't been uploading, but I definitely will be a lot more recently because I'm trying to raise funds for a new laptop because as you and I know, my FPS is not there. It's awful, you can barely see anything, and it's awful. So if we could reach 5k by August, it would really mean a lot. I would get myself a new laptop and it will all be great for you and I with content, uploads, and a lot more. So along came my first few runs, and they were pretty much just for me to get the hang of actually slightly competitive Kuudra running, with time actually mattering a lot more than it did in Fiery Kuudra, with each phase having actually technical things to do, and generally having different keybinds and metas to learn. Now a quick rundown of my beginning setup on Infernal was a Hype, a Fire Veil, 2 armor sets for Clear, my Ember set and my Burning 7-star Aurora, along with my Wither Goggles, a level 100 Legendary Sheep because I didn't use a Blaze at this point yet, and an awful 850 Magical Power. Now, my DPS set, I was running 3/4 Burning Terror, 7-star of course, along with my Wooden Helmet, an Epic Tiger because my Golden Dragon still did not outdamage my Tiger for some reason, 400 mil Bank, and a Duplex 2-turn. Now the items I was rocking was incredibly bad. Now I was incredibly undergeared for Infernal through most of the time and died a lot, which was honestly pretty normal before in Fiery, with supplies being over a minute and build needing to be built twice. But in Infernal, no, this was awful. This is not something you want. And this is called throwing. Now the main aim of these few runs at the start was to make sure Party Finder didn't kick me and that I could actually get through the runs without dying and dying and dying. Now the main problem with Kuudra at this point was finding parties, and similarly dungeons, if you want to run, you'll also have to already have done Kuudra a bit. Now this might seem a little bit stupid, and it is, because to run you need runs. Now how are you going to run?
Well, you need runs, but how are you going to run? Well, first of all, you need runs.
Now, without the completions, it was incredibly hard to get into Party Finder, especially with my combat level being about 54, which was, let's just say, suboptimal. Now, the main thing I did with this was just be party leader, because honestly, most people can't read, and most people are a little bit lazy and they won't check your profile, so this is exactly what I did. Now, when you're running, the main things you need to learn when you start is your muscle memory on your pulls when you're pulling in your supplies, where to pull, and your wardrobe shortcuts. Oh, and also swapping items in part 3, which most people for some reason don't do, maybe because they don't have the items, like me. But anyways, finally, after the boss, it's also about knowing how to swap quickly, your chest profit, and yeah, just swapping back to everything in about 10 seconds or else you'll be back in your terror set trying to do supplies. So during these runs, I sold absolutely everything to improve my G-Drag bank because 400 mil does absolutely nothing to me, and most of the essence was put back into my terror so I could get it to Fiery, but I still didn't have the teeth yet, so I got it to 10-star, and the rest was pretty much just my G-Drag bank because at that point I thought 850 magical power was very good. So onwards from 100, my run started settling in pretty quick. I was getting used to the gist of things and it was pretty fun. I was making big profits and my DPS was still purely cosmetic. But the general gist of the runs came to me and Fiery was all about completions. I learned that Infernal was all about speed. Now there was a lot of things that did not help my run speed at all, and the biggest one at the moment was dying. Dying all the time, around an average of 3 per run. Once in supplies, another time right before build, and a final time during build. Now if you're wondering why this slows down the run so much, it's because a build from 25 seconds would go to 45 seconds. Supplies from 40 seconds would go to over a minute. And as a whole, everyone would have to stop what they were doing to help me do what I was supposed to be doing. So to combat these issues, I looked to my Aurora set. Now at the moment, I was running with no mana enchant and barely any EHP. And now this was only about a month after Refrigerate had been released, and it was incredibly unknown and underused. Looking at it now though, it's an incredibly powerful ultimate enchant for absolutely anything. With an extra 1000 defense, it is nothing to laugh about. Now another underused book at the time was Hardened Mana, which capped at 400 defense per book. Now where would you actually use this? In dungeons? Yeah, but outside of dungeons this was actually pretty cracked, with up to 1600 extra defense if you got it on all of your armor pieces. Now after refurbishing my set to have Refrigerate and Hardened Mana on it, I now had a little over 3500 defense during builds and was comfortably completing it. Now the other things I got during this time were a legendary Blaze Pet just to boost my EHP just a little bit more so I could survive all the time, or a little bit more EHP as well, getting around 150k now. 600 mil G-Drag Bank, which is honestly a pretty good amount seeing how many runs I actually did, and constantly improving the lifeline on my Terra, which I dropped by myself in Kuudra, by the way. Now the only noteworthy drop at the time was a Godroll Aurora piece, which I sold for 230 mil. Now the most important thing for me back then was learning all the new techniques. Being able to not fail my pre-supplies was a very big thing, because it meant I wouldn't have to go back and redo the first supply that everyone else already had finished, knowing where to go after I completed each supply, so I knew all my routings from every single spot. So where X goes to, where equals goes to, how to help everyone, where to pull in supplies for other people. I knew all of that. Learning to build better, so knowing when to fresh, knowing how freshes work, and how the build was to be completed. Swapping equipment really quickly in part 3, which meant that I would be able to fire on Kuudra for a longer amount of time, which would lead on to the next point, being pre-firing on Kuudra. So pre-firing meant that I had to use 32 toxic arrow poison instead of 22, because it meant that DPS would go a lot faster, and I would be able to kill it in part 3 a lot faster. How brick stunning was actually a thing, so if someone failed their stun and the run was about 7 minutes, I could jump in and do a quick brick stun and save the run. And finally Kuudra Copter, which I pretty much never used but was pretty funny to look at. Now all these things I learned in this 400 run period was incredibly important to everything moving on, and I'm very happy that I learned all of this. So massive thanks to everyone who's taught me this, because I definitely would not be here without you. Honestly, after a bit, the runs started blending together. It was all just running more,
Getting more money, improving my setup, running more, getting more money, improving my setup, running more, improving my setup.
but there was still a lot of techniques to learn. Now, surprisingly, I ran over 400 plus runs without knowing that the Last Breath's effect doesn't have a time limit. Now, if I shot Kuudra in the supplies phase, it would carry on to Kuudra's last phase, being its lair phase, which meant by doing it earlier during supplies, I could save time later on. Now, another thing was that swapping equipment was very annoying for me, so I just skipped that. Now you're wondering, now how did you skip your equipment swap? Well, you see, I just ran my DPS equipment all the time. Now you're probably wondering how I survived with that. Well, it's pretty easy. I have Hardened Mana, I have Wither Shield, I have Refrigerate. How am I supposed to take damage in the first place? Now, by doing this, it pretty much meant that I could save a lot more time, a lot more stress, and have more time to pre-fire in part 3. Now another little thing is that the Reaper I had, well, I never really used it because of my terrible ping. So instead, I updated my NEU, so I got wardrobe keybinds and started wardrobe swapping my Reaper instead of equipment swapping it. Now you're probably wondering what the difference is, and it pretty much is that I won't half swap it, and that I had to take a couple enchants off my Terminator, so I do 5k less DPS now. Womp womp, take it, hope, nobody cares. Now the main thing of why I removed all the tick enchants off my bow was that I would be locked into combat, meaning I wouldn't be able to equipment swap or wardrobe swap now, because, well, if I was locked in combat, this stupid message would continually play. Now, I just removed a couple of these, and now I could actually Reaper, Rag all the time, instead of just Rag. Now, a very, very large thing is that my DPS setup got a massive facelift, with now 800 mil in my G-Drag bank. Flawless gems on my Terra, which for some reason I did not bother getting a while before, because it was a little bit too expensive. Full Legion 5 on my first set of armor, being my Terra and Warden. Fiery Terra, that actually have teeth now. And I started running with a Remedy G-Drag instead of a Shelmet because I'm a little bit stupid. Now the major things I decided to change were Duplex to Fatal Tempo, because Fatal Tempo actually does damage. By the way, if you're watching this as this releases, Duplex is better than Fatal Tempo because it's a little bit bugged and it pretty much just does ghost damage now, so yeah, don't do that. Another little thing is that I got a lot more MP. Most of my effort went into getting more MP because I got it from 850 to nearly 1.1k. Don't check my MP now, it's still not 1.1k, but that honestly doesn't matter because I hit 1k MP, which is crazy, which meant I could do 30k more damage. What a massive boost. Now, I also learned that my Ember Armor was better on Necrotic, so when I got back to mid, I actually had mana when swapping back to Aurora. So pretty much, these are the main things I got throughout these runs. I'm pretty sure I dropped a God Roll, but I can't remember, honestly. My mind is really dead because I need to run more Kuudra. So yeah, those were these runs. They were pretty much just my DPS upgrades, so yeah. In my final stretch on my way to 1000 runs, Kuudra sort of died. Now, rend got patched bit by bit. A little thing I didn't mention at the start was that rend was a big thing during this time, and my runs were highly dependent on someone rending because DPS was honestly lacking quite a bit, especially because of me, and now I can be 1 or 2 peaking, which was honestly horrible. Right before this though, I did get some really good rending footage, so I will pretty much just be using that for the rest of my days now. If I ever make any other videos apart from Kuudra, I'll just be using that as B-roll because it's crazy. I also did run a really slow personal best of 122, which is still my personal best right now, which is a bit annoying. But finally, after so many runs without a God Roll set, I got God Roll Terra and equipment so that I could actually drain something, and I did learn something that day, or in fact 3 days later, which was that admins don't particularly like it because they released or announced the attribute change 3 days right after that. So hooray, massive money dump right there. Apart from this, that was just the main thing I spent my money on. I did 7-star the Terra, but that was with my own essence. And I did finally hit 1 bill bank, which went down again because I was doing Alchemy 50, so that's another W. With consistent 1 minute 40s, I finished off my 1000th run, and now you get exactly what you came here for, the profit. A little quick disclaimer before I begin with the loot. There's going to be a little bit of maths in here, so if you're scared of primary school maths, you should probably skip to the end because I love having viewer attention. If you hate maths, skip to the end. If you don't, here's how I made over 3 billion coins in my 1000 Infernal Kuudra runs. Now, all the Kuudra items I've dropped from January 1st to now includes around 30 Terra pieces, about 50 Aurora pieces, 20 Hollow pieces, 20 Fervor pieces, 95 pieces of Molten Equipment, 10 Wheels of Fate, and 12 Burning Kuudra cores. Notably, the big items are 1 Fatal Tempo, which was sold at 70 mil, 2 Godroll Auroras, each sold at about 240 mil, and 3 Veteran Vitality pieces, each sold at 40 mil. Now, there are a lot of other books and pieces of attributes along the drop, being about 150 books and 30 plus shards, used on both equipment and resold. So I'll just account them along with the equipment. So the attributes I also used were 40 lifeline pieces at about 6 mil per, and 5 mana pool pieces at 8 mil per. Yeah, I didn't really use mana pool for some reason. So armor pieces had a median of about 8 mil per piece due to lows of 4 mil and highs of 20 mil on normal pieces. So I had 120 armor pieces and 40 used lifeline pieces. So the total is a massive 1.28 billion coins in armor pieces. With equipment, they have very big numbers when I sell them, and they average about 12 mil per. I had 95 equipment pieces, totaling 1.14 billion coins, which is massive. Now, I also got 10 Wheels of Fate at 12 mil per, so that is 120 mil profit. 12 Burning Kuudra cores at an average of 25 mil per, and that is 300 mil profit. 1 Fatal Tempo being 70 mil, the God Rolls and Vet Vita being a total of 580 million coins, and with books averaging about 1.8 mil per, they are about 270 mil. With a total of 3.76 billion coins in items, this is a massive amount, and honestly, this is pretty much 100% of my profile when I started Kuudra, not Infernal, just Kuudra as a whole. And with a quick calculation, we can also find how much I got in essence. So according to the number of Kuudra teeth both used and contained within my sack right now, I totaled 1092 Kuudra teeth. Splitting it down to the ones I only got from Infernal and not Fiery or the other tiers, I have 492 in sacks currently, 300 in Fiery, Aurora and Terra, which I got after I started Infernal, 120 teeth on 4/4 Burning Crimson, which I also got after Infernal, and that totals of 912 gained from Infernal, as well as 180 teeth used on other stuff. This means that I bought and opened 304 chests, gaining 1800 essence per, due to my legendary Kuudra pet buffing the amount of essence per chest, and this totals up to 547,200 Crimson Essence. Now, with an average sell price over time of 1.3k per, Crimson Essence has made me over 700 mil. Now, another few small stats was with keys, I spent 912 mil on pure coins, and 36,480 enchanted red sand from the bazaar. Now, with my adventure pretty much being over with Kuudra, for now at least, I am going to start my Slayer arc, so I guess I'll see you in a little bit. I'll get better at tier 3 Blaze if you haven't seen my B-roll yet. It's awful, I can't kill them, and it's really embarrassing. So yeah, I'll be right back, and I will start uploading soon.